everybody. Welcome. Good evening. Thank you all for coming out. Please make sure to silence your devices, please. That was our first piece, Chorale and Capriccio by Caesar Giovanni, conducted by Jared Ross. Another round of applause for Jared Ross. We couldn't play together without you. We are the Cheaha Winds, a local wind ensemble comprised of mostly local musicians. We love to perform together for our community. To find out more about us, about how to join, about how to sponsor us so we can keep the tradition of music alive in our community, check us out on Facebook. Up next is Arioso. So, I am up here to kind of stall because we have to tune a little bit. We have our timpanis back here. We got 5 of them tonight, which is more than usual. Usually we only have about 4. But I think we're ready. Next piece, Arioso. Arioso usually refers to a solo vocal piece like an aria, but Johann Sebastian Bach wrote this instrumental for one of his cantatas, number 156. That's a whole lot of cantatas. How many more after this one?
A bunch.
They're not making any more. But our next piece features a soloist on the French horn, Betsy. Please enjoy Concerto for Horn by Richard Strauss. Another round of applause for Betsy Wright. That was Concerto performed by Richard Strauss. This piece was written in Munich somewhere between 1882 or 83. Richard Strauss's father was one of the leading horn players at this time, so Richard Strauss was familiar with the instrument. Next up is our Clarinet Quartet, which consists of Jazz Simmons, Jada Franksang, Sherry Meadow, and Don Leonard. They will be performing the Me Channel theme, Oblivion, and La Reina. La Reina was written by our own Jazz Simmons. She's written a piece for each of her three siblings and her mom. Two of them will be performed tonight, and the other two, for her mom and brother, will debut with Howard University's concert band at a later date. The final piece for the quartet is dedicated to her older sister, Shauna, who has called herself the Queen for as long as Jazz can remember. This piece is meant to represent her favorite qualities of Shauna, being her quick wit, love of travel, strong personality, and affectionate nature. As we get back to where we were and play our march, The Foundation, which is not by John Philip Sousa, but by Richard Franco Goldman, I'd like to read a couple of our sponsors and supporters. In our directors circle, we have Harold Wayne Bresson, Golden Baton supporters, Harry Nuttall, Tom and Laura Leafram, Scott and Tim Preston, Maestros, Karen Liddell, Old Noble, Longleaf MediaWorks. For our benefactors, we have Evergreen Accounting Services, Jason C. Odom, LLC, M&H Valve, Logan Ross, and our patrons, Kenneth Bunn, Joey and Sherry Hutto, Ann Key, Angela Price, Rachel Price, Jared Ross, and me, Douglas Price. Next piece, The Foundation March. If you are a fan of Disney princess movies, you might recognize this next one. Let me ask around if we have any favorite Disney movies. What do you got?
Oh, you know me, I gotta go Beauty and the Beast.
I'm all in on The Little Mermaid.
You got one?
I think Wreck-It Ralph.
That does count as a Disney princess movie. What about you, Harry? What's your favorite?
It would have to be Snow White. I was grumpy.
Very good. Our next piece is Kingdom Dance from Tangled. Got a setup for our Woodwind Sextet. Good time for our commercial sponsors. Tonight's concert is made possible in part by Longleaf MediaWorks. The Cheaha Winds Community Band is proud to partner with them as they provide all the media services for the event, including the video production of this concert. Longleaf MediaWorks offers media and event production services, as well as aerial media services, to help elevate your brand and bring your story to life. Learn more at longleafmediaworks.com or visit them on Facebook. We thank them for supporting the arts and helping us share our musical community. Also sponsored in part by Old Noble, Quality Gifts and Southern Hospitality. Stop by and see them at 1028 Noble Street in historic downtown Anniston. And our newest sponsor, Sound Solutions. Their caring, qualified staff has more than 20 years of experience in providing high-quality, affordable audio-visual systems, whether it be a new audio system for your house of worship, or a new projection system for your meeting room. They have the equipment and the experience to meet your needs. Call them today. Let them provide your sound solutions. So, our next is our Woodwind Sextet, which is comprised of Joshua Wilson, Beth Ann Cochran, Jazz Simmons, Don Leonard, Jenny Arledge, and not a woodwind, Betsy Ross. But French horns are usually included in woodwind sextets, quintets, quartets. They will be performing Sleeper's Wake by John Sebastian Bach, and another song written by Jazz, Morning Bliss. This song is dedicated to her younger sister, Kenya. She's a master gardener who's turned her home into a botanical garden and wellness center. With this piece, Jazz encourages you to close your eyes and imagine you're walking through a garden on an early spring morning. Breathe in the crisp morning air, hear the birds chirping, and feel the sun on your skin as it peeks through the trees. This piece is a great representation of how she feels when she's in her sister's garden. We're going to get set back up. We're going to bring in our special guest. Another round of applause for Jazz Simmons and her arrangements. We'll look forward to those other arrangements for the other brother. So, bringing in our next guest, our special guest for the narration part of Peter and the Wolf by Sergei Prokofiev. Close enough. So, turn down your televisions and turn up the radio. Our special guest tonight, Eli Gold. Announcer for Alabama football. Can I get a roll call from anybody? No? But now it's Jack Stick. He also did some announcing for NASCAR. So, joining us tonight, Eli Gold for Peter and the
Once upon a time, there was a boy named Peter. He and his grandfather lived in a cottage with a garden surrounded by a high stone wall. Outside, there was a great meadow, and beyond the meadow, a deep, dark forest. Well, early one morning, Peter opened the gate and went out into that big green meadow. Of a big tree sat a little bird, Peter's friend. All is quiet, chirped the bird gaily. Soon, a duck came waddling around. She was glad that Peter had not closed the gate and decided to take a nice swim in the deep pond in the meadow. Now, seeing the duck, the little bird flew down upon the grass, settled in next to the duck, and shrugged his shoulders. What kind of a bird are you if you can't fly? And the duck replied, well, what kind of a bird are you if you can't swim? And he dived into the pond. They argued, and they argued, and they argued some more. The duck swimming in the pond, and the little birdie hopping along the shore. Suddenly, something caught Peter's attention. He noticed a cat The cat thought, look, this bird is busy arguing. I'll just grab him. And quietly, she crept toward him on velvet paws. Look out, shouted Peter, and the bird flew immediately up into the tree, while the duck quacked angrily at the cat from the middle of the pond. Well, the next thing you knew, grandfather came out. He was angry because Peter had gone into the meadow. It's a dangerous place. If a wolf should come out of the forest, then what would you do? Well, Peter paid no attention to his grandfather's words. Boys like Peter, you see, are not afraid of wolves. But grandfather took Peter by the hand, led him home, and locked the gate. No sooner had Peter and his grandfather gone than a big gray wolf came out of the forest. Twinkling, the cat climbed up the tree. The duck quacked, and in her excitement, jumped out of the pond. No matter how much the duck tried to run, she couldn't escape the wolf. He kept getting nearer and nearer until he got her with one gulp and swallowed her. Now, let me explain here. This is how things stood. The cat was sitting on one branch of the big tree, the bird on another, not too close to the cat. Meanwhile, the wolf walked round and round the tree, looking at them with greedy eyes. In the meantime, Peter, without the slightest fear, stood behind the closed gate, watching all that was going on. Now, Peter ran home, got a very strong rope, and climbed up the stone wall. One of the branches of the tree around which the wolf was walking stretched out over the wall. While grabbing hold of the branch, Peter climbed over to the tree. Peter, sitting there, looked around and said to the bird, "Fly down and circle around the wolf's head. Only take care that he doesn't catch you." The bird almost touched the wolf's head with his wings. Now, while the wolf snapped angrily at him from this side and that, how the bird did not worry the wolf, well, who knows? How he wanted to catch him so badly. But the bird was too clever, and the wolf simply couldn't do anything about it. Meanwhile, Peter made a lasso, and carefully letting it down, caught the wolf by the tail and pulled with all his might. Well, finally, feeling himself caught, the wolf began to jump wildly, trying to get loose. But Peter had tied the other end of the rope to the tree, so the wolf's jumping only made the rope around his tail tighter and tighter. Just then, hunters came out of the woods, following the wolf's trail and shooting as they came. But Peter, sitting in the tree, shouted, "Don't shoot! The bird and I have caught the wolf. Now help us take him to the zoo." Well, now, imagine the triumphant procession. Peter at the head, after him the hunters leading the wolf, and winding up the procession, grandfather and the cat. Above them flew the bird, just chirping merrily. My, what brave fellows we are, Peter and I. Look at what we have caught. And if you would listen very, very carefully, you could hear the duck quacking inside the wolf, because in his haste, the wolf had swallowed her alive.
Another round of applause for our special guests. Thank you so much for coming out and narrating for us. So our next song, The Night Dances for Wind Ensemble, will be our last song. Don't forget to join us in the hallway for a little reception. We have food and drinks out there. What did I do with my last page? I have to keep a script or I will lose my mind. Here we go. I'd like to give a special thanks to our supporters, the Jacksonville State University, who lets us use this property here, use this theater, Longleaf MediaWorks, the Oxford High School, which lent us some equipment, including a timpani, a few other things. John Chevalier also lets us use equipment. Sachs High School lets us use their band room occasionally for rehearsal space. And Weaver High School, they let us use equipment and sometimes use their space. If you look on the back, we have QR codes. Those QR codes are for if you would like to support us. We also have a box in the back. We can't do it without the support of our community. We have to rent this building, and we have to rent storage space here. So we appreciate any help that you can give us. I think we're about ready, so we're going to do our last song, Night Dances for Wind Ensemble.
Gonna miss you. I love you.